A camera at a beauty pageant helped create one of the smoothest vocal groups of the late 60s. Not a record label, not a manager's master plan, a camera. One member had chased baseball before a broken arm ended that dream. Their demo was rejected by Motown. Then Johnny Rivers signed them, changed their name, and watched them turn polished harmony into gold. They took Up, Up, and Away to the Grammys. They turned Aquarius, Let the Sunshine In, into a 6-week #1 record. They won Record of the Year twice before most groups ever got one clean shot at it. But the same sound that made them huge also trapped them. Some listeners thought they sounded too pop. Some critics said they sounded too white. And when they stood on stages from the Harlem Cultural Festival to the White House, the question under the applause kept getting harder to ignore. Who were they supposed to belong to? The Grammy wins are real. The chart numbers are real. The Nixon White House performance is real. So is the split that ended the original lineup after Earthbound in 1975. This is the Fifth Dimension's real story. Chapter 1. The camera before the group. Before there was a group, there was LaMonte McLemore holding a camera. That detail matters because the Fifth Dimension did not begin like some record company invention. It began with a man whose first dream had already been taken from him. McLemore came out of St. Louis, served in the Navy, bought a 35mm camera while stationed in Alaska, and chased baseball seriously enough to pitch in the Los Angeles Dodgers farm system. Then a broken arm ended it. So music was not the plan from the start. It was one of the doors still open after another one slammed shut. Photography became part of that next life. And through photo assignments, McLemore ended up at the Miss Bronze California pageant. That was where two women crossed his lens before they ever shared a stage with him. One was Marilyn McCoo, born in Jersey City, New Jersey, raised by two doctor parents, polished and gifted enough to sing like she already belonged under lights. The other was Florence LaRue, born in Plainfield, New Jersey, with her own pageant background and a voice that would later help give the group its bright blend. A camera saw the group before the world heard it. The voices came from different places. Billy Davis Jr., like McLemore, came from St. Louis, and his roots were in gospel and R&B. Ron Townson brought formal vocal training. McLemore carried jazz instincts and street corner harmony. McCoo and LaRue added polish, discipline, and pop elegance. On paper, it should have been messy. 5 backgrounds, 5 instincts, 5 ideas of what a vocal group could be. But when they came together in Los Angeles in the mid-60s, first as the Versatiles, something unusual happened. They did not sound like a copy of the groups around them. They sounded expensive before they were famous. More than that, they sounded like 5 people trying to rise together, even though each one had entered the room through a different door. That became their blessing. Later, it became the problem, because harmony can make 5 people sound like one body, but it cannot make 5 people want the same future forever. Chapter 2. Rejected by Motown, saved by Johnny Rivers. The first big insult came from the place that should have understood them. Motown rejected their demo. Think about that for a second. Here was a black vocal group with polish, range, beauty, discipline, and crossover potential, and the label most famous for turning black pop into American pop passed on them. For another group, that rejection might have ended the story before it really began. For the Versatiles, it became the bruise under the rise. Then Johnny Rivers heard something. By 1966, Rivers had started Soul City Records, and he saw what Motown had missed. He signed them, but there was a condition. The name and image had to change. The Versatiles sounded like a nightclub act, not a group built for the new color of the late 60s. So they became the Fifth Dimension, a name that suggested space, height, future, and escape. The name sounded like a promise. The first single did not. I'll Be Lovin' You Forever failed to chart, which meant the new name had not magically fixed anything. The group still needed the right song, the right producer, the right arrangement, and the right moment. That moment came with Go Where You Want had already been recorded by the Mamas and the Papas, but in the hands of the Fifth Dimension, it landed differently. It gave them their first real chart breakthrough and showed what their sound could do. They could take folk rock material and turn it into bright, elegant soul pop without sounding like they were borrowing someone else's clothes. That mattered because the late 60s were crowded with identities. Rock wanted danger, soul wanted urgency. Pop wanted to be clean enough for television but modern enough for radio. The Fifth Dimension stepped into the middle and refused to sit neatly in any one chair. Then came Jimmy Webb. With Up, Up and Away, the group found the record that finally made their image make sense. The song could have been too sweet, but their voices gave it lift without letting it feel empty. Marilyn, Billy, Florence, Ron, and LaMonte sounded like they were selling Escape, not just singing about a balloon, and America bought it. Up, Up and Away became their first major signature hit, climbed into the top 10, and carried them all the way to the Grammys. The same group rejected by Motown was now walking into rooms that every act wanted to enter. But success did not erase the question underneath them. Were they soul? Were they pop? Were they too polished? Were they exactly polished enough? Nobody had a clean answer. Chapter 3. The sound nobody could categorize. The easiest mistake is to call the Fifth Dimension smooth and stop there. Smooth was only the surface. Underneath, their sound was a careful machine. Billy Davis Jr. brought gospel and R&B weight. Ron Townson brought control. LaMonte McLemore brought jazz color. Marilyn McCoo gave the records a clear, shining center. Florence LaRue completed the blend with poise and brightness. Then producer Bones Howe placed those voices inside arrangements that could feel soft, grand, theatrical, and ready for radio all at once. That was the trick. They sounded effortless because the work was carefully built. On Up, Up and Away, the group made optimism feel expensive. Up and away, my beautiful. The song did not stomp or plead, it lifted. It arrived during a time when the country was anything but light, yet it offered a fantasy clean enough for television and strange enough for the late 60s. For some listeners, that was magic. For others, it was the beginning of suspicion. The more their music crossed over, the harder people tried to decide what box to put them in. Then Laura Nyro entered the story. Her songs gave the Fifth Dimension a different kind of charge. Stone Soul Picnic reached number 3 in 1968. And sold over 1 million copies, but even the title carried a looseness that felt different from Up, Up and Away. This was not just balloon music anymore. It had more earth under it, more smoke in the air, and more youth culture beneath the polish. The group knew how to make those contradictions sound natural. They could sing something bright without sounding childish. They could sing something soulful without fitting the harder soul image critics expected. They could move through pop, R&B, jazz, and sunshine without stopping to explain the route. That became their gift. It also became their trap. Sweet Blindness, another Laura Nyro song, pushed the point further. The record carried energy and swing, but it still came wrapped in that flawless group sound. Even when the songs got looser, the Fifth Dimension sounded controlled. Even when the lyrics hinted at a changing culture, the presentation stayed elegant. And in the late 60s, elegance could be dangerous. Pop audiences loved them. Grammy voters loved them. Television loved them. But some listeners heard the same polish and wondered if the group had traded grit for acceptance. For a black group trying to survive in the American mainstream, crossover success could look like victory from one angle and compromise from another. The voices were beautiful. The blend was perfect. The question was, who got to claim them? Chapter 4. Aquarius, Grammys, and the Price of Belonging. By 1969, the Fifth Dimension were no longer trying to prove they belonged on the charts. They were already there. Then came Aquarius, Let the Sunshine In. The song came from Hair, the musical that turned youth culture, protest, sex, spirituality, and rebellion into a Broadway event. In another group's hands, the medley might have sounded like a costume. With the Fifth Dimension, it became bigger than a show tune. It sounded like the whole decade rising into one bright chorus. For 6 weeks, it sat at number 1. 3 million copies moved. Then it won Record of the Year at the Grammys, giving the group that award for the second time. Their first had come with Up, Up and Away. Think about that. A group rejected by Motown had now won the biggest Grammy Record Award twice, with songs that did not sound like anybody else's lane. That should have ended every argument. It did not. Between 1967 and 1973, they won 6 Grammy Awards and placed 20 songs in the top 40 of the Billboard Hot 100. Those are career-defining numbers. Yet under the trophies, the same question kept following them. Who were they for? That question mattered at the Harlem Cultural Festival in 1969. The festival was a massive black cultural moment, later brought back into public memory through Summer of Soul. The Fifth Dimension performed there as a successful black group at a time when black pride, black politics, and black music were all pushing forward. But they walked onto that stage carrying a strange burden. Some listeners had already accused them of sounding too white. Others had mistaken them for a white act before seeing their faces. Their harmonies were polished, their clothes were clean, their records moved easily through pop radio. To a broad audience, that made them accessible. To some critics, it made them suspicious. That is the painful irony. The same blend that made the Fifth Dimension famous also made people question them. Their music crossed lines so gracefully that some people treated the crossing itself like a betrayal. If they sounded rougher, maybe they would have been called more authentic. If they stayed in one lane, maybe nobody would have asked who they belonged to. But then they would not have been the Fifth Dimension. Their whole identity was the blend. Once Aquarius' Let the Sunshine In became an anthem, the group stood at the peak of American pop with no easy home underneath them. The applause was huge. The awards were real. The records were everywhere. Still, every perfect harmony carried a question in the background. How much acceptance can you win before people start asking what it cost? Chapter 5. The White House and the Crack in the Image. The stage that made the problem impossible to ignore was not a concert hall. It was the White House. In 1970, the Fifth Dimension performed for President Richard Nixon. On paper, that sounds like success. A group starts as the Versatiles, gets rejected by Motown, finds a new name through Johnny Rivers, and ends up singing in the most powerful house in the country. But timing changes everything. By 1970, Nixon represented law and order politics, establishment power, and the machinery many artists of the era were pushing against. So when the Fifth Dimension appeared there, the performance landed in a tense place. They did not simply sing fluff. They performed The Declaration, a socially conscious piece that carried critique inside the setting itself. But the room still mattered. The image still mattered. For listeners already unsure about the group's clean pop polish, the Nixon White House appearance gave them another reason to pull away. It did not matter that the group could point to the song choice. To critics, the visual was easy to flatten. A polished black pop group standing in the White House while the country outside was angry, divided, and burning with argument. That was the trap. Their respectability opened doors. Their respectability also made people suspicious of every door they entered. And yet, the hits did not stop right away. Wedding Bell Blues had already given them another #1 in 1969, with a perfect bit of real-life irony behind it, because Marilyn McCoo and Billy Davis Jr. married that same year. A song about waiting for a wedding bell became a hit while two members were turning romance into reality. Then came One Less Bell to Answer, written by Burt Bacharach and Hal David. With Marilyn stepping forward as the emotional center. The record became a top 5 hit, and it showed where the group's sound was heading. The harmonies were still there, but the spotlight was beginning to narrow. That shift grew clearer with Last Night I Didn't Get to Sleep at All and If I Could Reach You in 1972. Both became top 10 hits. And both strengthened the sense that Marilyn McCoo had become the voice many listeners heard first. For a group built on 5-part identity, that mattered. It did not mean the others had stopped being important. Billy, Florence, Ron, and LaMonte still shaped the sound. But once the public starts hearing a group through one lead voice, something changes. The brand still says 5 voices, but the records begin pointing towards separate futures. The early 70s were not a collapse. They were more unsettling than that. The group was still successful. The voices were still beautiful. But the image had cracks now. The sound was moving softer. The audience question had not gone away. Inside the group, gravity was slowly pulling toward the two people who would eventually leave. Harmony was still working, the future was not. Chapter 6. When 5 voices became separate futures. The end of the original Fifth Dimension did not arrive as one dramatic explosion. It came like a slow fade. That can be harder to watch because nobody gets one clean scene to blame. There was no single verified backstage fight that explains everything. No simple villain. Instead, the pieces that had made the group powerful started moving in different directions. Album sales tapered. The sound drifted deeper into soft pop. The record still had class, but the late 60s magic was harder to recapture. The culture had changed too. By the mid-70s, pop, soul, rock, funk, and disco were all moving fast, and the Fifth Dimension were no longer ahead of the room. Then came soul and inspiration in 1974, which marked the end of their key run with producer Bones Howe. That mattered because Howe had helped frame them. His arrangements gave their voices space, shine, and architecture. Without that partnership, another piece of the original formula was gone. In 1975, the group released Earthbound, another collaboration with Jimmy Webb. It became the last album by the original lineup. After that, Marilyn McCoo and Billy Davis Jr. left to become a duo. Their marriage had already become part of the group's story, and Marilyn had become the focal point on several hits. But knowing why something happens does not make it less painful. 5 voices became 3. Then 3 became a continuing name with changing faces. McCoo and Davis proved there was life after the group when You Don't Have to Be a Star became a major hit in 1976. That success made the split feel even sharper. The future they chased outside the group was real. Meanwhile, the remaining Fifth Dimension kept going with new singers, and Florence LaRue moved into a more central role. Then came one of the cruelest near misses in the story. The group recorded Love Hangover with Florence singing lead, and it nearly gave them another hit. Then Diana Ross released her version. Her version became the one people remembered. That moment says a lot about the late period group. They were still talented. They could still find strong material, but the cultural spotlight had moved. The old name still meant something, yet it no longer commanded the room the way it once had. The group continued through later lineups, tours, reunions, and recordings. The original quintet even reunited for a tour in 1990. Ron Townson stopped performing after kidney disease forced him away in 1997, and he died in 2001. LaMonte McLemore, the man with the camera who helped bring everyone together, died in 2026 after a stroke. By then, the legacy had shifted again. Summer of Soul brought their Harlem Cultural Festival performance back into view and reminded people that the easy story was never enough. They were not simply a polished pop act trying to pass through white radio. They were a black vocal group navigating a brutal question that American music kept asking. How do you cross over without being accused of crossing out? Their records still answer better than any argument. Up, Up and Away still floats. Stone Soul Picnic still swings. Wedding Bell Blues still smiles through its ache. Aquarius, Let the Sunshine In, still sounds like a door opening to a future people wanted to believe in. And if stories like this bring back the music you grew up with, subscribe for more deep dives into the artists behind the songs. The original 5 did not last forever, but for a few years they made harmony sound like escape. The story of the Fifth Dimension is not just about perfect harmony, it is about what happens when a group becomes too smooth for some people to trust, too successful to dismiss, and too hard to place in one simple box. They were rejected by Motown, then won the Grammys. They were questioned for crossing over, then stood in front of a black audience at the Harlem Cultural Festival and proved the story was never that simple. The original 5 voices eventually went separate ways, but the sound stayed behind. So maybe that is the real answer. They did belong somewhere. They belonged in the air,